So last December, I released a video on why I believe Paul and Linda McCartney's Ram is the first indie pop record, which you can check out at the link right here. Well, Ram is turning 50 years old this month, and in celebration of this, musician and producer Fernando Perdomo and original drummer from Ram and the first two Wings albums, Denny Seiwell, have recorded a new version of the legendary LP that includes over 100 other musicians from across 3 generations. The list of artists includes Ram alumni Dave Spinoza on guitar and Marvin Stamm on flugelhorn, plus Pat Sansone of Wilco, Joey Santiago of Pixies, Carney Wilson of Wilson Phillips, and many, many more. The album's called Ram On and will be out May 14th in both physical and digital formats. And I was lucky enough to sit down for an hour with Denny and Fernando, where we talked about what it was like to be one of the first musicians in the world to work with the Beatles post-breakup, how Ram came together in the studio, the initial reception, and its enduring legacy. We also discussed how Ram On recreates the magic of one of the most influential albums 50 years on. It was a total blast. So without any further ado, here's my interview with Denny Seiwell and Fernando Perdomo. Hey, thank you so much for doing this. Thanks for inviting me to be a part of this Ram On project. I think this is so cool.
Brother, you were one of the fires personally to do this project. Your video on was Ram, the first indie rock record, went viral around the time that we were working on the record. And I was showing it to Denny and saying, look, this is important. This is an important record. And this is a record that has aged very well. And there's so many people that are influenced by it. So we have over 100 people play on the record. It wasn't hard to find. It was actually harder to decide who was going to do what. But we had plenty of people that not only were Beatles Wings fans, not only were McCartney fans, but were true Ram fans. And this is a record that inspired so many people of every generation since it came out. And it's also had a very interesting 50-year run, as you've talked about. Denny was there when it was made, and then he was there when he was surprised to see the reviews when it first came out. But then as years come along, things have been way kinder to it. So it's really interesting.
Well, that was one of my questions, Denny, is because I know that this is pretty much your favorite album that you've worked on. Were you surprised when it was released and Rolling Stone and everyone else was just kind of hating on it?
Well, surprised, yeah, but I wasn't really that truly. They all had it in for him because they just thought that he broke up the Beatles, so he could have had another Sergeant Pepper, and they would have slagged it,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like Paul was kind of the punching bag of the four of them at that time, because he really appeared like he was the one to instigate the full breakup and everything. Obviously,
either him or Yoko.
yeah, of course. In terms of it kind of getting off the ground, I know from the research that I've done on Ram that Paul kind of came up with a lot of the songs on his farm, and then he went to New York and kind of he held secret auditions for musicians to fill out the band. How did you find out about it? Did he recruit you? Did he single you out, or did you just audition like everyone else?
I'll tell you the story. It's easier. There's a guy named Barry Kornfeld, who's a kind of a folky guy in New York, and he was part of the whole recording scene, and he knew all the cats, all of the top cats who were doing all the good records and stuff. So when Paul came to town, he somehow or another probably knew him through Dylan or something. And so Paul asked Barry for a list of the drummers. Who are the guys the 10, 12 of the guys that are doing the records? So my name was on that list, fortunately. And so there were guys like Bernard Purdy and Bill LaVorgna and Ronnie Zito and all of the cats at the time, Donald McDonald, Burt LaBelle, all of those guys. But when I got the call, it was midday, some non-particular day, and I got a call from my answering service. They said, you just had a date cancel, but Barry Kornfeld would like you to do a demo for him at 3 o'clock at such and such an address. And I said, wow, I didn't even know there was a studio there. So I said, okay, I'll do it. So I go over, and it's really in a bad neighborhood between 9th and 10th Avenue on like 43rd Street or something. And it's an old brownstone. It didn't look like it had electricity, but there's a guy sitting up in the lobby. So I go up the steps and I say, hey, is there a studio here? And he points to the basement. And I went, oh, this is going to be fucking weird. So I go down to the basement, and there's Paul and Linda in a dirt floor basement, and it's a kid of drums from Studio Instrument Rentals. And I said, "Hey, you're Paul McCartney." He said, "Yeah, I know." I said, "Well, what's up, man?" He said, "Well, I'm going to make a record, and I'm looking at drummers. Do you mind playing for me?" I said, "Sure, I don't mind." I said, "How about you got a bass or guitar or something so we can jam together?" He said, "No, just you." And so the next line, I think, was the line that got me the job. I said, "Well, all right, I guess if you can't get it on with yourself, you can't get it on with somebody else." And he kind of liked that. And so I just sat down at the tubs and said, I went right into Ringo, slamming the toms. He liked my attitude, we laughed, made him crack up a couple of times. Little New York humor, and he said, "Play some shuffle, play some rock and roll time, play it," just asked me a couple of different things. And I did it like I was having fun with it, I said, "Shit, this is a unique experience. I'm sitting here with the best known guy on the planet, and I'm just going to have fun with it." I kind of figured out, if he's looking for a drummer, I'm not going to be the drummer. There's too many guys in this town that are way ahead of me on the feeding chain. So I left. He said, "That's all I need. Thanks a lot." I went, "Oh, great, man. Really nice to meet you. Thanks for nothing. See you never." No, that was a Linda line. So I left thinking nothing of it. And then I went out, and the next couple of days on the street, the word was out. "Yeah, McCartney's in town looking at drummers." And Bernard Purdy and these guys. Yeah, I told them to buy my records, but later on I found out from Paul, they all went down, but they kind of knew what they were going to, and I didn't. Maybe that gave me a leg up. I don't know. But
right.
After the audition period was over, well, I should tell you this quick one. My buddy had the Pro Drum Shop in New York, and he said, "I hear you met McCartney the other day." He said, "They're selling Ringo's kit from the Shea Stadium gig at the Museum of Famous People. They're going out of business. There's an auction, and I'm going to it. Do you want it?" I said, "Sure. I can't afford millions, but what's He said, "Don't worry. I'm just going to get the kit. I want the snare drum, but I'll sell you the two tom-toms and a bass drum." I said, "Okay, all right. Let's see what happens." So he calls me up the next day. He said, "Bang." He says, "I got it, man. Give me $300. You can have two toms and a bass drum."
What?
I ran down there, gave him the $300. Remember, this is 1970. So I get the drum. Now McCartney calls me the next day. He says, "Hello, this is Paul." I said, "Paul who?" He said, "The guy you played for. And oh, that guy, that Paul." And I said, "What's up, man?" He said, "Well, I want to hire you for this record." And I said, Give me a second. Let me look at my book." And I just threw everything in the air, jumped up, and
Oh my God.
said, "Yeah, just give me the time, when and where, I'll be there." And so the first day, he walks in and says, "Hey man, you ready to go?" I said, "I'm ready." He goes, "Those your drums?" And he did a double take on the Beatles drum set, and the drum had the head on it and everything, and my dad's snare drum, and that was the kit that I used on the whole Ram album.
Oh wow! So there's a bit more of the Beatles DNA in Ram.
Yeah,
I had
Do
no
you still
idea.
have- Yeah.
and
Wow.
the snare drum, I use it on Ram, and I use it on Ram On too. My dad's.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Incredible. So you still got the full kit?
No, I got rid of it.
Well, fair enough.
It
Fair
wasn't
enough.
what I needed for my. See, I just thought it was another record I was making, and it wasn't really what I needed for my. I was doing all kinds of recording, everything from jazz to sambas to rock to,
Yeah.
So I really wanted some Gretsch drums at the time, and I traded them back to Frank at the drum shop, and I bought my first Gretsch kit. Little did I know that they were going to sign me up as an artist, and they supplied me with my drums ever since.
Yeah. Wow. Now I've heard you. I've read somewhere that you said you were a jazz musician until you met, or a jazz drummer until you met Paul McCartney. What do you mean by that?
Well, I started playing jazz when I came to New York. I was playing at the half note with Al Cohen and Zoot Sims and all of these old time greats, and that was my thing. My first record was J.J. Johnson and Kai Winding, the trombone players. It was a great band. It was a jazz record. I made records with Astrid Gilberto, the girl from Ipanema. And, I was making a lot of jazz stuff. But I'll tell you, can I curse on this?
Please. Yeah.
I sometimes in my Beatle Fest shows, I'll say, "You play with one Beatle and it really fucks up your jazz career." That's what happened, you know, like I was doing all kinds of rock and roll records, but as soon as I started working with the rock guys, all of a sudden I could pay the rent. That was a nice little
Yeah.
feature. And I
Yeah.
could actually, you know, have dinner in a restaurant, take my wife to some nice
Mm.
restaurants. Stuff like I said, this rock and roll ain't that bad, you know.
And do you find that yeah, rock musicians have a totally different approach to jazz musicians in terms of how they go about cutting a song?
Uh, Rock musicians didn't really interest me that much. Paul gave such a blend of everything because he was so uh, uh, what's that word I'm looking for? Like he was so special. There was a thing about his music, the way he dressed, the way he acted, everything about him was he was just on another plane.
Yeah.
And so when I got to record with Paul, the music would come at us, and it had such a high degree of I can't think of the word right now, but it blew my mind every time I heard one of those songs. It's like, you know, you got a Chevy and a Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
I mean, the Rolls Royce is going to stand out. Paul's material just had that degree of that special je ne sais quoi, as the French say,
Mm.
and every
Yeah.
song had something really special about it. And you know, like he'd come in with you know fucked up cowboy boots and jeans on, but a $400 silk shirt that was just to die for. You know, he was a fashion setter, a trendsetter, and just everything about him had that extra little element of. So it fit the whole jazz thing. It fit all the music that I loved, and all I had to do was use my total musicianship
Yeah.
to create these parts with this guy. So it was a win-win.
Yeah. Right. Very cool. Very cool. And in terms of working with Paul on the album, I've heard that Paul is can be at times a bit of a perfectionist. You know, like he really likes to, I guess not, maybe control is not the right word, but you know, be involved with all elements of the band. And you know, did you find that? What was it like? You know, working with him in the minutia of you know, like a particular song.
This surprises everybody. When he came to New York, English musicians thought the grass is greener. Better
Mm.
musicians in New York. New York musicians in grass is greener. Better musicians in England. You know, so he came to
Yeah.
New York expecting to hire pros. New York
Mhm.
session man doesn't get any better than that on the planet in his mind. And session men, they're different than band members, you know. So when he hired us, he knew that he was hiring us. There's only one time on that whole album where he asked me to find a different part, not tell me what to play, but
Oh, really?
what you're playing is okay. It was on Collaborator. He said, what you're playing is okay,
Right.
but I want something that stays out of the way, that's more broken up around the vocal rather than stuck a bed under the vocal. And, you know, boom, boom, you play a regular beat, but boom, jack, boom, jack, boom, boom. So around the vocal, it just worked out so beautiful. That's the only time he asked me to find something different. The rest of the time, he trusted me and Spinoza or McCracken. And these guys, when we heard the material that we were getting to record, we brought the A stuff out. It was
Yeah.
it was pretty damn. It was hard not to, you know, you're standing in front of probably the most important guy in the music business. You know, you're gonna bring your best game to the table.
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
think passion also attracts passion.
Yeah.
And when he's there singing his freaking heart out,
Oh yeah.
you know, there's no choice but to lay down your best stuff. And this stuff is gonna live on forever and outlive us all. I mean, this is one of the most perfect records as far as not just the songs, not just the production, not just the album. It's the minutia, all the little stuff,
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
parts. It's a record that it's not just the songs that attract people. It's all the individual parts and all the individual musicianship, which is mind blowing to me. I mean, you know, I discovered the record when I was learning how to play guitar and bass drums, and I was just like, that record perked my ear because I was listening to everything, not just the vocals, not just the beat. I was listening to
Everything.
Oh, it's such an impeccably crafted record.
And something unique about this was, I think, like a little ways into it, a couple of songs into it, I realized, you know what? I'm not getting to play bass
play with Paul as a bass player, because he would just play piano or guitar and sing a pilot vocal. So we kind of learned the song, and then we put down the track. So I never saw him with a bass, and I'm saying to myself, "Oh, hold it." I knew that, he and Ringo were like a shoe and a sock. He made his bass parts around the drum parts and vice versa. So I said, "Ooh, it's kind of important what I play. So I have to really pay attention to if I want to get carried away or not." So I tried to take that degree of elegant taste that Paul had and make sure that I covered that, especially in my bass drum parts.
Yeah.
And you'll hear
'Cause
some
that's
goofy, huh?
well, I was going to say, I've always seen Ringo's drumming as he's someone he's a real song drummer. He really just understands that you bring in a song, he's just going to support you and that kind of thing. So like he never tries to be, there's barely any drum solos in any Beatles songs. So did you feel a pressure to kind of like, sorry?
There are memorable little moments where he'll throw something so minor in there, but it's really it's major because he left his mark on something, and that's what I was trying to do that as well.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm sure there must have been a bit of a pressure to not, do too much and really just kind of support Paul and support the sound. But I mean, I love the drumming, especially on Uncle Albert, Admiral Halsey. There's so much going on with that song. It's like it feels like it's an entire kind of album in itself. But what was your reaction to listening to that song once it was complete? Because there's a bunch of stuff going on there. There's like sound effects and like a thunderstorm and everything. Like how did you feel when you listened to that for the first time?
I'll never forget it. I never heard, I was invited up to a sweetening session up at A&R once, where the orchestra was in there, and I heard a little bit of that, and I ran to my next session. So I don't know, a month went by or something. We came to LA, we finished Ram in LA, and I come back, I still haven't heard him play the bass to the tracks that I recorded. And finally, one day, my doorman at my building in New York says, "There's a box here for you." I go down, and there's a box of records. I take it up, open up the LP, and I put it on the turntable, and I drop the needle on it. Probably smoked a joint too, but it was man, it was mind blowing. I just sat there. I almost had tears in my eyes. It was so beautiful.
Yeah,
it was because we spent a lot of time. We went to California. We did a track or two out here, and Dear Boy was done out here, and there was a lot of stuff. We went to dinner. Paul would say, "Come on, call your wife. Let's go out to dinner." Go out to some great places in New York. We go down to Chinatown, places where you shouldn't go and stuff. It was so cool. I met a friend, and Linda was great. The kids were great, and the kids were climbing all over me. It was
I had a question about Linda because, at that point she was, Paul's wife and a really talented photographer. But were you surprised once you got down there and once you started playing that she was as heavily involved as she was?
I was surprised.
Yeah.
When Paul's, originally the band we'd been talking about Hugh McCracken and Paul Harris, from Manassas and John Sebastian and all that. But when Hugh bolted on the invite to join the band, because he had prior marriage and he had young kids, he couldn't leave the country and join a band. So anyway, when I came back to New York, Paul called a couple of weeks later. He said, "I got Denny Lane coming up. Come on back. We'll put the band together." And I said, "Great. Who are we going to have play piano?" He said, "Linda." I'm like, "What?" And she played piano. He says, "Don't worry, I can teach her what she needs to do." And he worked with her, and she improved over time. But it was a lot. It was a big burden, a big load to carry. But and near the end, she was doing pretty good. She was an integral part of especially the vocals, even the background and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think she adds such a great quality, like because she's not like classically trained in any way. I think her voice kind of adds to the strangeness of the album. And I think Paul obviously knew what he was doing with that one, and yeah, I guess she learned. She must have been really intimidated by all you like jazz musicians coming in and just, you know.
Oh, no, it wasn't all you. It was me. Oh,
Yeah.
you mean? Well, no, she did in the RAM period. No, she sat in the control room with the kids and made tea. I didn't hear her
Right.
do anything. I didn't hear her do anything other than be a wife and a mother until the farm in Scotland.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Together. So no, as for the Ram album, she made us a cup of tea that was great, Thai food tea, and you know, proper British tea, and she stayed in the control room with the kids.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah,
I had
wonderful.
no idea that it was going to grow into that. I remember the first night that we went on the European tour. Now we broke the band in on the university tour, but the European tour, I mean, she was on my shoulders. She was weeping a little bit. She was that nervous. I
Oh
said,
yeah.
so hey, now, come on, girl, suck it up, get out there, do your best, man. You can't let us
Yeah.
down. You can let your old man down. So, and she did. She got out there and she gave it her best shot. You know, what can I say? She got the shitty end of the stick a lot of times. She was a
Yeah.
sweet. She was misunderstood. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Her vocals on. I mean, it's great that you mentioned that vocal blend between Paul, Linda, and Denny Lane. That sound that you ended up producing on all
Yeah.
that stuff. You know, he was doing all. He told a story about working on the records where you were in the control room.
Well, I produced the vocals. Somebody had to, you know. So I'm upstairs at Abbey Road and they're downstairs, you know. And I said, all right, let's get a blend. And we were having fun in those days. The whole band we were a family unit. We had fun. It wasn't work. And I said, all right, let's gather around the mic, get a good blend. Denny, can you move back a little bit? Okay. Paul, we need you to move in a little bit. Maybe we do need you to move back. And she said, how far back do you want? I said, you got a car? And they laughed. So, you know, we had fun with it, but she worked her way into it. She could do her parts. I'll never forget the first night of the first gig, the university tour. In fact, it wasn't night. I think it was a lunchroom. It was during the day. And she starts off the song Wildlife. Doom, 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 and she forgot it. So Paul calls, we're going to start the set with Wildlife. And she looks at him like she looks at the keyboard and she couldn't remember what it was. Paul kicks it off, and so he walks over and he shows her. And then he goes back and he kicks it off again. She plays it. We get through the tune.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was great.
I mean, as an amateur musician, that is very relatable. What was it like doing that first run of university tours? I mean, you're playing to people who I guess, you know, probably didn't expect to see a Beatle, you know, live in their university, and just also for you, what was it like playing live with a Beatle, you know, to a crowd of adoring fans for the first time?
Well, I've gotten all over the shock of playing with Paul McCartney as a bass player and singing just from the rehearsal.
Yeah.
Shock of the first time making music with him as a musician, playing bass and singing is frightening. It's so good.
Yeah.
I've recorded with a lot of famous people, great artists, but nobody was a patch on his ass. He was like just so special, man. And so by the time we brought Henry in the band. Now we got two guitars, piano, bass, and drums, you know, and we rehearse. So once you get over that, when you hit the stage for the first time, it's like making a record and playing it for your friend for the first time. Someone else is hearing your music, you know. It's different. It really has a great effect on you. And the first time we performed live, I mean, it was very special. I can still feel it, you know. It was really, really special. In fact, I'm not sure if any of those things were recorded. I don't know what
There's they released a deluxe version of Ram a few years ago, and there's a live recording of Eat at Home and Smile Away, kind of like back to back. And
that's from Red Rose Speedway, I think. The European
oh yeah?
tour. Yeah, it's from the European tour. I don't know if anything was ever released from the university tour, man. That was raw.
Yeah. Because they were really the first shows.
So you could be right though. I don't think any of that was recorded though. We didn't have enough for a complete set. Chris, we had to give Ireland back to the Irish twice. Sometimes we repeat Long Tall Sally. just to get a full set in, you know.
Was Paul nervous at that time? Because for him, he hadn't really played live since Candlestick Park in '66, apart from the Abbey Road, on top of the rooftop. Was he a bundle of nerves going on stage?
Because I never saw it. I never saw Paul nervous at all about anything.
Wow.
And we were so sheltered from all of that Beatles stuff that was going down. He did not bring that into the band at all. We didn't know about it. We didn't care about it. We lived, breathed, and worked and traveled as a family, and it was fun times. I know that he's had, I don't know how many iterations of Wings ever since that original one. Nobody had the fun that we did. It never was the same, and you can hear it in the music too.
Yeah, I mean, because you were a part of it for Wildlife and Red Rose Speedway, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, some real, I mean, I was listening to Hi 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 the other day. Man, that is such a good rocker. I wish Paul would pull that out at more concerts these days. I saw him a couple of years ago, and the sound you guys were producing back then, it was just really cool. You were kind of, kickstarting 70s rock.
We had two guys, Ian and Trevor. Ian Jones and Trevor Horn, I think was their name. And Ian loved drums, so he cranked the drums in the mix. We'd always have a lot of bottom end men, and we had the European tour. We had a 70mm screen behind us with horses in Africa and all of this shit, wildlife, all of this. I don't think anybody else was doing it at the time. I think we were breaking the mold. We had 2 drive-in theater projectors, 70mm projectors with this big screen. It was just, we had a crew of 60 guys on the road with the Stones mobile truck, the 16-track truck that recorded, I don't know, a bunch of those gigs. That's where Paul got the recordings for the box set, the live stuff for the box set. And I said, you're genius that you could take, some of that stuff was like, the guitars were out of tune and vocals, you couldn't hear and they were out of tune. He fixed it all, or had somebody fix it all. And it's brilliant, and it's really a great representation of what we'd become as a band.
That recording that was included on Red Rose Speedway, live at the Hague.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, the energy! If you could capture the energy in a bottle, it's just like it does have. I mean, I grew up loving Wings Over America and all that other stuff, but there's a completely different vibe. It's less sweater suits as opposed to jeans. That there's a big difference. I asked Denny if he ever saw any shows on the Joe English era, and he says, yeah, he went to go see them, and he says that it was more like Paul's band. There's a horn section, and, everyone's in suits, and there's it's a production, as opposed to they've just spent 24 hours traveling in a bus with no air conditioning, sitting on top, with dogs and wives and kids, and then they, pull up to the show, and it's like a real rock band. It's like, again, it's like the early Beatles again. It's them traveling to, all the different parts of Germany, and,
A lot of times the European tour, I mean, the bus only went 35 miles an hour. so we'd be chugging along the freeway, cars would be blowing by us, say, shit, we're not going to make it to the gig tonight. So the promoter would send brand new BMWs down the German freeway, motorways and stuff. They'd pick us all up. We'd each have our own car and do 130 miles an hour back to the city. So we get to the venue, jump out, jump on stage and play sometimes. Yeah, it was wild.
Crazy.
And what was it like, Denny, 50 years on, playing these same songs with, some of the same kit? Was it surreal?
I was very fond of the music, and I used to do drum clinics, and I'd always play I play along to the CD from Ram on a few of these tracks every clinic. And then if I was doing a performance at Beatle Fests, New York, Chicago, even Liverpool, I would always include a Ram clinic where I just played along, they'd give me 45 minutes to an hour, and I'd have the fans holler out, what song you want to hear? And they'd holler out a song, and I'd put it on the CD, and I'd play along to it, and maybe tell them a story about what it was like in that day in the studio, so they loved it. Don't hear many bands try to even attempt to play the music from Ram because it's a little tricky.
It's too hard. There's so much going on. I mean, even even a song like Dear Boy, all the overlapping vocals. I mean, like, how do you even play something like that live? You know,
What do you
like
mean?
it's
That's terrific. I mean, that's a really hard tune to pull off.
yeah, yeah.
Or production.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul definitely was inspired by Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys, and he pulled it off on that one. I mean, the arrangement on that is incredible. It's also one of the best headphone songs of all time, too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, every track on Ram On has got the spirit of the original record. That's
Yeah, you can hear it.
what I made sure of. I really wanted to make sure we just didn't miss the mark by even a little bit, you know.
There was two very important things that made making this record a combination of hard and easy at the same time. Number one, this guy who was there during the making of the original record, not only, you know, he said, hey, if I'm going to do this, I've got final say on who's singing what and who's doing it, mixes and everything. And, you know, I knew that this had to be, if his name was going to be on it, if his reputation would be on it, it's got to be perfect or no go. And then the other thing that blew my mind is, you know, Denny is a responsible adult. So the day that we started working on the record, he texted his old friend Paul. And because it turns out that, you know, they are very good friends and they text a lot. And he just said, hey, Paul, there's this guy who I met who's got a studio and he wants to make a new version of Ram and he could get all the old sounds. Is it okay if we do this?
No, I also told him that there was another generation that wanted to pay tribute to him, that you had all these friends. They all love the album as much as Fernando does, and we want to do a tribute on it. So I believe that's what's caught his attention more than anything. You know,
Paul wrote back and said, sounds good, have fun.
Yeah.
4 words that made the process harder and easier at the same time. Because knowing that he's definitely going to hear this, and he has heard this, and he has dug it, you know, it's something that, you know, is beyond anything I would ever think would ever happen to me in my life. Being a, you know, little Cuban boy from Miami who moved out to LA because he was tired of playing Latin records. I played on big Latin records, but I was just like, I need to go out to LA and play on something I would actually buy. I never thought this would happen. I never thought that I'd be in the room 5 minutes away from this guy playing through Uncle Albert in one take, playing along to the original recording. Note for note, he had actually worked on all the fills to make sure everything was perfect, and playing with passion and playing with precision and playing with fun. Just he was smiling. There's lots of smiles going on while making this record. And what happened was that about a year before, I was in a band that wanted to do some covers, and Too Many People was suggested. And I said, hey, we could get the original drummer, and let's, you know, it was a paid situation. So I said, let's get 2 songs out of them and see if we can do this. And we did Too Many People and Some People Never Know, which is one of my favorite songs of all time, off of Wildlife. And he loved working with me, so we get in touch. We had originally met at the NAMM Festival convention and stuff, and we had talked about working together. So when a year passed, I said, hey, we already got 1 song, drums. Might as well do the whole record. It'll be a lot of fun for the 50th anniversary. The original idea I had was to do a concert, then COVID happened, so then it turned into an album, which in the end, honestly, is way cooler because we then recorded the drums in 2 sessions. He actually did drums for 8 songs in 1 day. 78 years old, did drums for 8 songs in 1 day, didn't break a sweat, loved it, it was amazing. And then we started sending the files all over the world. And the thing about Ram, because I've done tribute stuff before, for like I did a tribute record for Yes, and I did one for, you know, King Crimson and Tom Rundgren. The thing that's different is it's harder to find someone that hasn't heard, it's harder to find someone that it's easier to find someone that hasn't heard Ram than to find someone that doesn't love Ram. Because Ram is one of those albums that when you listen to it, it sticks with you. And when I said to Denny, I was like, I don't want to just find Beetleheads. I don't want to just find Wings freaks. I want to find Ram freaks. And I want to find people that this music is in their DNA. And people that consider this record part of their life. Like I did. I first heard this record when I was 8 years old. And when that needle came down on my thrift store copy, and I heard Too Many People, my life was changed. because it was everything I loved about rock and roll in one song. And it took me like 45 minutes to get to the second song too, because I kept on listening to it because I was like, this is just the pinnacle of everything I love about Paul and everything I love about rock music, because I was also really big into stuff like The Who and King Crimson and Carpenters and Nash. And this was Beatle Paul now in the 70s with that 70s mindset and that 70s engineering, where it's cleaner, it's more open, they had more tracks to work with. The general vibe on that record is just so perfect. So then we started getting all these performances and getting these singers and guitar players and bass players and drummers, and it was a lot of fun because we casted it like a play. Like, okay, who's gonna play the Monkberry Moon, the light screamer guy? Who's gonna be the perfect Linda for a long-haired lady? Who's gonna do the hooting and hollering in the middle of another day? You know, who are we gonna get to sing? You know, all these bizarre things.
Backseat of my car.
Backseat of my car, exactly, which is possibly the hardest vocal album. Because there's songs like, you know, Smile Away and Moon Monkberry where the guy is manic and screaming the whole song. The thing about Backseat of My Car is he's loving, he's genuine, he's got a passionate, soft voice, and then he's screaming his head off for the last minute of the song. So we actually had guys that did the soft parts great, and then when they went to go scream, they're screaming in falsetto, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
And he brought in this guy named Brentley Gore from Nashville, Tennessee, who absolutely slayed it, but with a very interesting story.
Yeah, he got a positive COVID test the night before. So the next morning he got up and he did all his vocals before it hit.
Oh man. Yeah. Oh, good. That's good to know.
We actually had a couple people that had it, and you know, it was very difficult to understand that people were, you know, in the middle of this pandemic. Luckily, this project was such a guiding light and such a happy thing for all us to do. Yeah. And also, it helped that everybody was off tour, and we knew everybody was. We were able to say
everyone was available.
Hey, Will Lee, are you on tour of the phone now? He's not. He's, you know.
Yeah, when we got to the near the end of it, we could see the finish line. You know, I said, you know, I love all of the choices that you brought in, and I didn't know 90% of them, but I want a few of my dear friends on this too. You know, so I called Davey Johnstone from Elton's band. I called him up. I said, "Will you play on a track?" He said, "Sure." So we sent it over to him. He put like this iconic solo on Smile Away. Oh, and then my good buddy Joey Santiago from the Pixies, you know, we gave him a couple of tracks to pick. I think he put a part on both of them. And he's like so unique, you know. He did some beautiful stuff. And I said, I got to get my buddy Will Lee on it too, you know, because he's that Fab Faux thing that he does. Whenever he comes to town, they call me and they have me come down and sit in with them. And I'll play Money, the Beatles song with them, you know, which is a great treat, you know. So I called in a few of my regular friends just to put little cameos on there, which a little icing on the cake, you know. It was great.
Oh, it's great. It just adds to the eclecticism of the overall album to have all these different musicians, different artists bringing all different vibes. I mean, I would have seen, I think, Joey Santiago's last gig because the Pixies were touring in Australia right around March of last year. He was amazing. And then, so I saw him at a festival there. Incredible. But then I saw him on this album and I was like, oh, get out of town. There he is. And you got Connie Wilson.
And we can't forget Dave Spinoza, the original guitar player. I was talking to him just the other day. We had, you know, I'd seen him in New York. We played together. I had a gig at the Cutting Room, the old Cutting Room in New York, a couple of years, 5, 6, 10 years ago, I guess maybe it was. My good buddy Joe Beck had cancer, so we were going to do like a send-off gig for him. And he said, the chemo is killing me, man. You better get somebody else in case I can't play the whole night. So I get Spinoza, and we had a ball, you know. And so when it came time to doing the first song we recorded on Ram was Another Day, and I said, geez, I wonder if Spinoza would just put down his parts. So he puts down the 6 parts, exact parts that he put on the original, on the same guitar.
Yeah, he used the same guitar. So we had the original standard for the most of the record, for the whole of the record, and then the original Telecaster he played on that, which is amazing. But funny, we found Marvin Stamm, who was the trumpet flugelhorn player who played on Halsey. And I literally Googled him and I found his website and it said contact me. And I'm like, I found him. He's like, no way. So I write him an email. I copied Denny. Next thing you know, there he is. And he didn't have a recording setup, so I actually taught him how to record on his phone. So he recorded the trumpet solo on his phone, sent it back. And you know what's funny is that I mentioned, I'm like, by any chance, did you use the same flugelhorn? He's like, oh, I retired that one a long time ago. I could recut it if you want with that one. I'm like, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's all good. I'm just being a complete stickler of the original flugelhorn. But you know, those guys go through horns a lot.
No, what's funny is this guy, he really wanted the original. So on another day, there's a phone book overdubbed on the phone book, a Manhattan 1971 directory, right? So he goes on the internet to see if he can find one, and you're not allowed to buy them anymore.
Yeah.
But it turns out that phone book had a Peter Max cover on it. So it's a collector's item.
Impossible to So our friend Billy Amendola from Modern Drummer, he tracked it on a phone book and he sends it back and he takes a listen and he says, oh, I think you used the Brooklyn phone book. You got to double that. It doesn't sound fat enough. Too thin. It has to be a Manhattan phone book. But we got it on that record and it's really cool. And there was a lot of really interesting things that were done on the record that we were able to get. Like, for example, there's harp. Debbie Scher came and played harp on it. Real horns, real strings. We went all out because we really wanted this record to stand up as a good companion piece to Ram. And
it sounds amazing.
Everything about the record, it's not just a tribute to the songs. It's a tribute to the musicianship. It's a tribute to the production, the engineering. Zach Siskin wound up mixing the record. Another guy that did not have to put on Ram as a reference. None of us had to put on Ram as a reference. We already know these songs like the back of our hands. So it's like, you know, everything about it, the mixing, the engineering, the layout, the sequencing, the mastering, the way that the album flows. We wanted the album to have the same vibe. And, you know, so far the reviews have been fantastic and I really couldn't be more happy and more just pleased with everything because this record is, you know, it's to anybody that's heard it is going to be a lifelong companion. And we're excited that people that, it's an old friend, it's revisiting these old friends, but it's not a tribute album because there's Denny, there's Marvin, there's Dave Spinoza, you know, so it's like, it's really more of a celebration than a tribute than any, you know, because there's been other versions of Ram before. In fact, Dave Depper, Cat for Cutie, did a version of it all alone about 6 years ago, and he's on our record too. But again, it's like, it's a different vibe. It was more of like,
and you can't forget Thrillington as well, of course.
Thrillington. Oh, Paul did it himself, which is really, you know. But it's a record that's worth revisiting because Paul revisited it, and you know, it's really interesting too that right around the time we contacted him, he was just about to put out McCartney 3, and now he did McCartney 3 Imagined, where he,
oh my God,
you know, whole new thing. So we were in the reimagining business first, Paul.
But he said, if somebody asked him, said, if there was one record that would be good to be reimagined, which one would it be? And he said,
good idea, buddy. Someone should do that.
And can you personally believe that Paul is still making music and music at such a high standard as well? Like,
I'll tell you this. I got a video right after Linda passed away. We went over to see him at his studio. My wife and I were hanging out. He filmed it, and it's funny. This is what I'm leading up to. When Paul puts on the bass, he can't talk. It's like all of a sudden you're talking, you're having a great conversation. And he puts on the bass, and you say, "Well, what do you think about it?" He goes, you know, he's totally immersed in his music, and it doesn't surprise me at all. He's going to do it until it stops coming to him.
Yeah, which it probably never will.
It comes to him constantly. Yeah.
I was blown away by 3. I mean, it's like it's such a unique and bizarre and ass backwards to what most people at his point in his career do, which is be safe. You know, so it's like, how about that? You know, to Paul still doing the unexpected. So it's very cool. And I was super excited to see some bands that I didn't even know were on his radar. Krang Bin. I've been telling people about
I know.
years, and I was just like, how did he know about Krang Bin? bunch of like 22-year-old, like, you know, church musicians from Austin, Texas that got obsessed with Thai funk and do instrumental Thai funk. And
I saw them a few years ago at that same festival, actually. I was just like, who are these guys? This is the grooviest shit I've heard in years. This is so good. And then
now, this might be true, but I think Laura Lee might be the first female bass player ever to play on a Paul McCartney record.
well, there you go. That's an accomplishment.
I don't know. My brain would just blow up if a bass track I did got on a Paul McCartney record. That's Paul's job.
Yeah. I gotta say as well, just bringing it back to Ram, just from my perspective, after having made that video, which was only my second video on the channel, it's all still pretty new. That was the one that really kind of catapulted it to go viral or whatever. And just the amount of comments I have from people that are saying, you know, thank you for making this video. Ram is my favorite album. You know, I discovered it when I was a kid, or I'm 70 years old. This is such an important album to me. Thank you for, showing people how good it is, and just the beauty of it. But also there's a lot of younger people as well that follow me that say, hey, thank you for introducing me to what is now my favorite album. So you're still getting people with young, like Generation Z, who are hearing this and going, wow, this is fantastic. And it's 50 years old. So you've really tapped into something pretty amazing. And I think you're right. It is the perfect album to kind of bring back and reimagine.
Yeah, and there were so many moments while making this record that he just got the feels, all the feels. And it just, I can't imagine him being there 50 years ago, getting the feels again that he was getting. It's just, it blows my mind, and it makes me so content at what I do as a record producer, record maker. And it's like, this whole process is something that I will never forget. And thank you so much for digging in. Thank you so much for being a part of the resurgence of Ram for the anniversary. Yeah. What you just said, where people got introduced to the record through a YouTube video, some guy in Australia talking about an album they never heard of. That's saving the world, brother. Because, if we could get more people into Ram and less people into, I don't know, I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to say anything. But there's a certain organicness to an album like Ram, which is missing today in the top 40. Because I've worked with a lot of people that are Denny's age, and the thing that blows me away about these older musicians is that I work with a lot of young musicians, and they're not used to playing songs all the way through or singing songs all the way through. Back in the tape days, if you couldn't get that, if you messed up on bar 106, 5 bars before the end, that take is screwed. You just wasted tape, and you're never going to get hired again. These days, it's like, you have these drummers, and they're like, they tweak their parts, they time correct it, they'll do a chorus and then copy it over and over again, they'll create loops, and it's just like, man, I wish people would go back to the organic nature of the heart of Ram, because
you can hear it. You can hear the difference. And like, even, rock albums made today, just, they sound so, I mean, there's plenty of good stuff out there, but there's so much that sounds so just, artificially perfected, and it just takes all that kind of rock and rollness out of it, and you can really hear that just organic, just heart and soul of what you guys are doing when you listen to something like Ram or anything from kind of that era. That's why I love it. I always said I'm like born in the wrong generation, but there is something different to how you guys made music back then that I wish was more prevalent in today's music. Yeah.
Fernando gave me a record. That period of time in New York, though, the session guys that were doing all the records, man, there was a lot of great music being made in those days. And we just went in. There were no, the record companies and the radio stations didn't control it. It was the art that controlled what was going to be art at that time. And that's what was so great about it. He gave me a record that I forgot that I made. Some guy named Bobby Gosh. But you listen to this stuff and say, oh my God, that was terrific. The records I made with this kid that's a film composer today. He was 18 years old. We did a record in a day for him, and you listen to it. Oh my God, you can see there were so many things. It influenced so many things that grew out of that period of time. You know, it's a very interesting period of time in New York,
Yeah.
and here in LA too. The same. It was just an incredible time in music. Yeah.
Yeah, man. You grew up in the best generation, no doubt.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then there's so many different aspects to Ram that really makes it unique. Paul's first record in America. He had just done an album where he played everything. It's the joy of playing in a room with Denny and with Dave, or Denny and Hugh, and God, that magic. It's so amazing, and it just still brings a smile to my face listening to these songs.
I gotta find this video, but a couple of years before Huey died, I was in New York and I went up to see him, and we're in his apartment. And for the hell of it, Huey's quiet. You can spend an hour before he says anything. He was just one of those kind of guys, but he's there with you, and part of the deal and all. But he's very quiet, very mild mannered. And he just gets up and he walks over to the stereo and he pulls a copy of Ram out and he puts it on the turntable. We're just sitting around talking. The wives are there and everything. He puts Ram on and he puts Uncle Albert on. And he goes and he grabs his acoustic guitar and he plays those parts. And I'm almost in tears. It's so beautiful, And I have that video somewhere, and I can't find it on my damn computer because I have access to everything. Oh, how did we live without these computers?
But yeah, it's funny that you mentioned this because Hugh is how we got the singer who sang Another Day on Ram On. Hugh produced the record in 1979 for his protege, who was this guy named Gordon Michaels, who was from Baltimore. And on that record, there was a song that had the vibe of Another Day. Totally, you could tell that they were capturing that spirit. And I was just like, okay, this is the guy. And then Gordon came in, killed the vocal, and he's there representing Hugh. So yeah, I wish I would have gotten to meet him. Sounds like an amazing person.
Can I do a quick shameless plug?
Please go for it.
See this? That's my jazz record. It's an organ trio. Tell Australia about it. It's called Boomerang, because that's kind of what I did with my jazz career. I threw it out and it came back now that I'm old.
Nice.
But I have two records, Reckless Abandon and Boomerang. Reckless Abandon had 5 McCartney songs done in a jazz genre. And this Boomerang, we did Live and Let Die. So tell your people, all your folks down there in Australia, you come check it out. You'll dig it, man. It's fun.
I will. Well, you heard the man. Go and pick it up. It's Boomerang by, was it the Denny Seiwell trio?
Yep.
Perfect.
Got our own Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff that old guys ain't supposed to have.
Yeah, no, go and pick it up, everyone. And I want to say,
here we go.
Oh, yeah, there's the plug.
There we go. There we go. This is a little
Rachel
record.
out of it.
Yeah, you should check this out, man. I think you really dig this. This is the new Ram On. This is it's coming out on Friday for the 50th anniversary, and hopefully we'll have vinyl soon. But yeah,
where can people find it?
Everywhere.
Everywhere, Amazon.
Everywhere.
You can order directly from Cherry Red. You can order it in your local shop.
Is it on iTunes and all that?
It will be on Friday.
Friday.
Oh, fantastic. There you go. Friday, streaming on Spotify as well?
Yeah, you could steal it on Spotify if you want. No.
Yeah, come on.
If you want to.
Buy music.
Buy the record.
Alive.
This album has a
Please.
28 page booklet.
It's worth just the booklet's all worth it.
There's a whole page on the snare drum alone. Trust me, if you love Ram, you're gonna want this. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
There you go.
We really
You heard it, everyone. Go and buy the album. Buy the physical copy. You will not regret it. And one last question, just to cap this interview off, and thank you so much for your time. Favorite song off Ram from both of you?
Well, go ahead.
Too Many People is always going to be the song that represents Ram to me. Because you'll never get a second chance at a first impression. And when you put on Ram and Too Many People kicks in, you'll never forget where you were. And I grew up a little bit when I heard it. I was 8 years old. I think I grew my first chest hair listening to that song. So, and it blew my mind. It really did. But Backseat of My Car also.
Yeah, I think that's mine, Backseat. I love that kind of feel at the end. And what's funny about that is like, it was a spur of the moment deal, you know. So when I tried to do that song, I play along with the record on Beatle Fest and what have you. So I tried to count it out, the space between the last note and the beginning of the fill, you know. And I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a half, and then bing! I never got it except one time. I don't remember where it was, at one of the Beatle Fests. I nailed it, and I did the fill at the same time as the record, and it was like sensational.
It is one of the most iconic drum fills, and
It's a simple one, but it's where it's at, you know?
it's
Truly.
exactly what the song needs at the exact moment, because it kicks off manic screaming from Mr. Paul.
There you go. Hey, and one, you didn't ask, most people ask about Road All Night.
Yeah, I listened to that again last night. That's just like that. It's like an 8-minute jam between just you and Paul. Just I read the story about it, that it was like, well, you did this amazing first take, and then the engineer couldn't get his shit together.
Right.
But you got it on the second. Yeah.
We did. You know what? I tell some people this story. I don't, this is mine, not Paul's, but as he's singing, he's making up this thing during the jam. He said, I wrote all night till I finally hit the day break. To me, that meant I'm finally making music that I can make music with somebody other than the Beatles.
Yeah.
So I told him about this. He said, nah, that wasn't it at all.
I like your interpretation more. I like
me
that.
too. I'm sticking with it.
And talk about an incredible iconic drum performance. I mean, your
That
foot,
was fun.
your right foot is
Oh, yeah.
spectacular, dude.
So I had to throw that in there because you've been one of the good ones. I appreciate your time and, you know, getting the word out for us, man.
Absolutely. Well, this is this has made my year, man.
Well, keep on doing what you're doing, because we need people. How old are you, by the way?
I'm 30.
I was going to say 24.
Oh, I
No,
like
it's
that
okay.
better. I like that better.
You're bringing, you know, more people like you are needed to bring the music to a new generation. And the more, you know, the more these videos go viral, the more people are going to get woke to the good shit. So
that's my mission, man. I feel like, you know, there's only a few of you left, Denny, like that are from that generation, and I'm really just trying to pass on the torch and make sure, you know, this new generation remembers kind of where it all started, where it all came from, and just kind of to appreciate it, because this is the nucleus of what we have today. You know, pop music, rock music sounds the way it does because of what you guys laid down in the 60s and 70s. So that's what I'm passionate about, and that's what I'm going to keep doing.
Awesome. Thanks, Elliot.
No worries, guys.
And we really hope that this video gets some nice attention, and I think people are going to learn a lot about stuff from this. So it's great.
Okay, you hang up first.
Awesome, Elliot. Thank you so much.
Alrighty, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview. Thanks again to Fernando Perdomo and Denny Seiwell, of course, for their generous time in talking to me. And if you want to check out my video on why I consider Ram to be the first indie pop record, I'll link that right here. Otherwise, subscribe for more videos, interviews, who knows. I will catch you in the next one.